According to 2023 indicators, financial services providers MasterCard, Visa and JP Morgan are best prepared for future growth after keying into consumers' digital finance needs. In autos, Chinese manufacturers who make their own batteries and chips are on pace to give EV giant Tesla a run for its money. Meanwhile, in the consumer packaged goods industry, leading players Coca-Cola, P&G and L'Oreal are among the top firms leveraging AI to keep consumers wanting more. Howard Yu joins us, Professor of Management and Innovation at IMD. Howard, you have my attention on packaged goods, consumer packaged goods. I mean, we think about AI as a way to manage costs, tackling tasks that people don't really want to do and just to trim those overheads. But what we're talking about here is something different. Getting creative, anticipating consumers. How does this work in packaged goods?
Absolutely, right? Because in today's world in consumer packaged goods, the last thing you want to get trapped is commodity competition. You need to premiumize your brand. The only way to do it, personalization. And what we're seeing is top-ranking companies such as Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, P&G, what they have mastered is to understand the consumer at the individual basis and really embracing these varieties of product, right? It requires AI, digitization, advanced analytics from the supply chain all the way to the app store to make it end-to-end completely transparent. That's the future of the consumer brand.
But as you talk about personalization, I mean, how do you personalize a can of Coke? I mean, the whole point is that it worked very well with economies of scale. You had a certain amount of products on the shelf, you sold that en masse to consumers. So this personalization angle drives up costs, surely.
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? We tend to think about Coca-Cola, for instance, just having one variety, but in fact, they have something like 200 brands, serving 200 territories around the world. So in a way, there is the low sugar, the regular seltzer, and they're going into alcoholic beverages and so on. So that requires a lot of the management of exploding varieties. The only way to cope with that variety without expounding your cost structure is AI.
Explain. Why is AI the only way?
Well, if you think about it, if I'm a marketing manager, you're the manufacturing guy, if we are coordinating based on Excel spreadsheet, email, telephone call, it would be a disaster. There would be so much human error. And today's world, if you could describe our workflow, we automate them, everything done by AI, not just ChatGPT, then you can focusing on running the better factory yourself. I can focusing on marketing activities. The world is smoother and our work would be more enjoyable as well.
The Chinese approach to AI seems somewhat different to the approach that we've seen in the West so far. And it's restrictive, it's controlling, and it is going to change the nature of how AI is developed in China. Will it be positive for Chinese manufacturing in that sense? Because this element of personalization you're talking to seems to run somewhat against the tradition of how Chinese factories have operated.
That's right. I mean, this is where one of these technological decoupling will continue to accelerate. And what we're seeing is in China, the AI is much more around image recognition, much less around the ChatGPT, and they're still trying to launch a chatbot. We don't know whether they can catch up with OpenAI technology. And of course, in China, you have tremendous amount of data. But then they don't really allow the creativity of the AI just go away. Unlike in Europe and US, the chatbots can tell us anything. So I think what will happen is the use case scenario as well as the trajectory will continue to diverge between the Western world and China. The implication to future-ready company, you cannot choose side. You need to embed it in both ecosystems so you take advantage on whatever emerging in the two economies.
Well, I mean, then that's just duplication, effectively, isn't it? I mean, this whole post-COVID world we're heading into seems to be one where we build matching supply chains to create resilience, but effectively that's costly and requires additional effort and resources. How do we match our ESG objectives with duplication of resources?
Yeah, one thing at IMD when we talk to executives, they all talk about resilience, and I think the inevitable cost is a little bit of redundancy. If there's one thing we learned from COVID pandemic, if we optimize everything, just-in-time management, lean manufacturing, we optimize everything, we could do only one thing, then inevitably there's a huge amount of risk inside the system. So unfortunately, in our geopolitical world, acceleration of different decoupling, I think executive really needs to come to grasp that, well, there are redundancy, just we need to build in so that there's a little bit of buffer in the system.
Howard, what's the rush? I know I say this because everyone's like, it's like it's almost like a panic now. Every time you talk about the word chat or GPT or AGI, there's a panic on from everyone. Oh, we've got to have this, we've got to have it. Why don't, because we all know that the technology is going to get cheaper. We all know the technology is great and it's get commoditized and it's going to get better, the technology. So it's going to be better, cheaper and easier for companies to use if they wait. So I'm saying second move advantage, third move advantage. Where's the rush? Because we know there's an awful lot of avenues in this AI world that are actually not going to be profitable and are going to be pointless as well. Surely you wait for others to make mistakes and then you pick up the pieces thereafter.
And in fact, I quite agree about that. If you're looking at all the top-ranking company, usually they're not the first mover, but they wait until something that works out. But persistence is key.
Can I just say the greatest example of that in the 21st century is Apple, in what it does.
They are never being the first mover, right?
Thank you, Howard. We're on the same page.
You know, from music playing device all the way to the smartphone, they're always the follower. But I think what's interesting is whether you're looking at all these top-ranking companies, they persist in those innovations regardless of the economic life cycle. Short-term company, whenever the business not doing well, we know they cut R&D, they fire off people, and that start, stop thingy, it's just so bad for innovation in the long run.
There's a terrific article in the Wall Street Journal questioning whether we've gone peak white-collar workers now at this stage, that effectively you're talking about how easy it is to communicate to a manager based somewhere else using AI to do all the stuff that you don't want to do so you can focus on various different parts that you should be focused on. There is a view that bloated management structures could come under attack with AI as we see more capabilities here. And this is a story that stretches beyond tech to all companies. What do you think? Are we actually going down the pathway of firing the knowledge economy in coming years because AI simply can do the job?
Yeah, I think there are two very plausible scenarios. In the fast forward-looking company, when they no longer need this human to do the routine task because they're advanced, they put manager and worker to do creative work. So there's always a little bit more human level or human layer can add the magical touch in a product offering. Now, the more, slow-moving company and traditional company, then they simply don't know what to do. They couldn't catch up. They couldn't catch up with the speed. So I think what will happen is the winner take it all. If you're advanced, you push people to do more creative work, and they're more valuable.
Can I ask you about the nuts and bolts here, because that is really the chip story, and part of the research report talks about the Chinese companies that are making their own batteries and chips. How important is it to have that technological capability where you build out your own chip so it's fit for purpose to conduct the sort of AI that you want it to, versus just taking a generic chip from a big foundry, say that's based anywhere really from the United States these days to right here in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's 100% important. The reason is, if we are thinking about car today, it's really supercomputer on wheels. The whole idea about mechanical engineering, internal combustion engine is a thing of the past. And all the top-ranking Chinese companies, none of them are state-owned enterprise, right? These are privately held automotive maker, new kids on the block. And their core capability is around chipset design. Some of them manufacture chipset, software. This is the future of what a car is about. So it's a race for traditional company ranging from Toyota to VW to build up that new capability. It's the know-how that matters the most.
Howard, we've got to let you go, but thanks so much for coming in.
Oh my God,
I feel
so
like
great
we've
to be
learned
here.
a lot
Thank
about
you.
the sector. Howard Yu, Professor of Management and Innovation at IMD.